Hello and welcome to our first live class and discussion. In today's class, we're going to be talking about what I think is something extremely important for all job seekers and, of course, all salespeople. And that is persuasion and influence techniques. In today's class, we're going to be focusing on using these skills and techniques within and towards finding a job. And that includes writing your cover letter, creating your resume, and of course, attending job interviews and responding and answering job interview questions. The way this will work is in the first part, I'm going to give the lecture or the actual points and skills and tips and techniques. And then if any students have any comments or questions, and student means you, so I would like you to participate and engage with me and communicate with me here in this discussion. So like I said, the first part will be the actual short lecture by me. And then if there are any comments or questions in the live feed, I will answer and comment on all of them. So if you are here online with me, please say hi. I want to know who is here so that I can say hi to you. So again, if you're here, say hello in the live chat. I really look forward to communicating with you. We'll take a little moment to see if any more people will be joining us. And like I said, if you're joining us for this persuasion and influence skills conversation towards your job search, make sure to say hello. I've got my laptop here and my phone so that I can see who's commenting and I can respond. All right, well, in this case, let's get to the topic. Like any class, this particular class will have two textbooks. You don't have to buy these books, but I strongly recommend them because they are excellent. And in addition, they are not just published in English, but in many different languages. So if you want to practice your English, these are great. But if you feel more comfortable reading in a different language, I'm sure you can find copies of these books in your language. And the two books that I will be referring to or mentioning are, the first one is called Influence, The Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. And the second book, which is almost 100 years old, is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. And after we finish our live class and discussion, I will put the Amazon links and titles in the description below this video so that you can take a look at them if you're interested. But let's start at the beginning. In many cultures and according to many people, the psychology of influence or persuasion is seen as a negative thing. Why? Because we have seen many movies and maybe we've experienced it when we're buying a car or when we're in a store. These types of skills can be used for evil purposes or for bad purposes. But if you use them genuinely, they can be used in a very natural and very human way. And this is the way that I encourage you to use these skills. In addition to that, both of these books are written by people in Western countries, primarily in the USA. So as you listen to some of these tips and some of these skills, you may want to think about your own country or your own culture if you are not in a Western culture. So these are just two two little warnings, if I could call them, or two disclaimers that I'd like to introduce before we start. But let's get into the subject. According to Robert Cialdini, there are 6 principles or rules of persuasion and influence. And these 6 rules are reciprocity, which means if you give something to someone, they are more encouraged or more inclined to give something back to you. Scarcity, which means something that is rare. Authority, which means a specialization or authority in your field or your skills. Consistency, liking, and consensus. We're not going to be discussing all of these. We're going to be focusing on 3 specific rules from these 6. And then I'm going to connect them with what Dale Carnegie said in his book. Now, persuasion and influence, they're not some magical skills or some mystical tools that only people who do hypnosis possess. These things are used by everyday people in everyday situations. And that's what I want to introduce to you. They're not difficult. If you practice them, you can become a master of these skills as well. And that will help you build and establish rapport with the person you're interviewing with. And when I say rapport, I don't mean you need to become friends. Not at all. All rapport means is that you're creating a situation where it's easy to communicate with the person that you are speaking with. And when I say communication, I don't just mean words. Communication includes both verbal and non-verbal communication skills and techniques. Nonverbal includes body language, it includes facial expressions, and of course, just as I'm doing right now, it includes hand gestures too. So we're going to see how we can use these types of skills together. So let's begin with scarcity, or something that is rare. Now, I see this all the time. If I'm walking down the street and I see a store that is still closed, but there is a lineup of people in front of the store, I'm pretty sure that this store has something that perhaps other stores don't have, or what this store has is in limited supply. So people line up because they know it's in limited supply and they want to be the first ones to go and get it. But how do we translate this into a job search or a resume or a cover letter or answering job interview questions? Well, it's like this. It's about your skills. Now, it doesn't matter if you're experienced, if you're a student or a new graduate or changing careers, you have skills. We can get skills from working in groups in our high school and college and university courses, by writing reports in school, by learning new skills on the job, by taking different online courses. There are volunteering, of course. There are just so many different ways to gain skills. So everybody has skills, and I've done videos on these things before. So how do you present your skills so that they seem scarce to your interviewer or to the person who's reading your cover letter and resume? Well, you want to see if you can achieve one or more of 3 things. And that is uniqueness, differentiation, or combination. Uniqueness means you possess some kind of skill that most other people don't possess. For example, if you know more than one language, again, that depends what country you're in, because if you're from a European country, you probably speak 1 or 2 languages at least. But for the most part, most people speak only 1 language. So if you speak 2 or 3, you've got a huge advantage. That's unique. Differentiation means that you have skills that are different from the skills that other people may possess. But I think one of the most interesting things is the third part, which is uniqueness. Do you have a unique combination of skills? For example, what I've discovered is that my background and education in business, my ESL teaching experience, and then just my general business teaching experience in colleges in Canada results in a unique combination of skills. So when you review your skill set, see if there is some kind of unique combination there. And there are just so many different possibilities. Later on, if you do have any ideas, please share them either in the comments section, or if you'd like to share them right now, you can do that in the chat if you think that you might have a unique combination of skills. So this is extremely important. Remember, scarcity. Do you have a unique skill? Do you have a skill that is different? Or do you have skills that have a unique combination of skills and experiences? And now, so what if you do have them? How can I use this to my advantage, you may be thinking? Well, first thing, make sure you mention that in your cover letter. And the second thing is, when you hear the job interview question, when the recruiter or the hiring manager asks you, why should we hire you? Or tell me about yourself, you should absolutely talk about this. Because as you do, you are communicating your value through scarcity. And of course, that is important in persuasion and influence. By the way, you can't make somebody believe you. You can't make somebody believe you. You can't force someone to think like you're thinking. But what you can do is you can use verbal and nonverbal communication skills to create an environment where it's easy for them to appreciate what you are communicating. And that's exactly what I'm talking about here. The other principle that I'd like to mention from Robert Cialdini's thinking is the principle of authority. Authority doesn't mean you're a manager or you're a CEO of a company or the president of a company. It's not like that. It means that you know what you're talking about because you've got the education or the experience. But you know what? It's never the same when you tell the interviewer or you tell another person that you're good at something. Oh, I'm great at this. Well, the other person is going to be asking, well, how can I believe you? So one of the ways to establish authority, and another word for authority is credibility. It means that, you know, what you possess, the skills that you have, are credible. It means that you can do the job that you're applying for. One of the best ways to establish authority and to gain credibility is through LinkedIn, the online networking platform. On LinkedIn, you have a couple of different choices in how you can do this. One is endorsements, and the other is recommendations. Endorsements just means that somebody says, hey, that person has leadership skills, or hey, that person has good word processing skills, or that person is an expert in Microsoft Word. And then they click yes on that particular skill. And the more people that click in it, of course, the number goes up, and it shows that all of these different people believe and know that you are an authority in this field. This builds credibility. And the other one, which is even more powerful, is when somebody writes a few sentences or a short paragraph about what you did. It could be on the job, it could be a work colleague if you worked on a team, it could be your colleague at school if you're still in school, if you worked on a project together, or if you helped that person study or succeed on a test, or help them succeed in a project or report. So absolutely, LinkedIn is a great way to visually build your credibility and authority. But you don't have to be using LinkedIn. Many people don't. If you are not using LinkedIn, make sure that every job you have, every volunteer opportunity that you participate in, you ask for a recommendation letter and collect these letters and keep them. Bring them to your interviews because you can use them as evidence that you are credible, that you have authority in a specific field or skill. So now we've talked about scarcity, we've talked about authority, and another rule uh, or principle that I'd like to mention from Mr. Cialdini's book is the principle of liking. And I think this is the most important one, and it's probably the easiest one for most people to achieve. But how do we get other people to like us? Now, again, you don't have to become friends, you don't have to become buddies. It's a matter of establishing credibility and just getting the other person to enjoy spending time with you, even if it's only during the interview. And Mr. Cialdini suggests, and by the way, he didn't create these principles or these theories. This is psychology. What he did really well is he took all these different ideas and he simplified them in his book. But here are the three things that you would need to do in order to encourage another person to like you. Number one, people who are similar tend to like each other more. Now, when we are similar, it doesn't matter you have to be from the same country or look the same or dress the same. But what I mean is this. If you're going to an interview and your interviewer is dressed in a suit, make sure you're dressed in a suit. So for example, if you're going to interview for a warehouse job, the chances are high that the person you'll be interviewing with is not wearing a suit. Dress to match the type of job you are applying to. And how do you find out if you really need to know? Check out the website of the company. Look at some of the pictures. Take a look at what people are wearing in those pictures. Can you find any staff photos? What are they wearing? And that can help you get an idea. The second step or the second thing that helps other people like us is compliments. You know what? If you say something nice to another person, but it has to be real and genuine. But if you say something nice, if you give another person a compliment, they're probably going to smile, and internally, they're going to feel more appreciation for you. So compliments. But you know what? You have to make sure that they are real and genuine. So if you walk into an interview, don't say, oh, I like your shirt, or I like your shoes. That's not what I mean when I say compliments. Compliments, when I'm thinking about them, include things like, you know, I've been reading about your company and I really respect and admire the growth in the past year. Or you might do a little bit of research about the person you'll be meeting with. Maybe you can find some information on LinkedIn or maybe in a business article and mention something from that. You might say something like, wow, I admire the career path that you've been taking. It's something that I want to follow as well. So you see, you're paying a compliment about something that is only that you can only know by doing a little bit of additional research, by investing a little bit more time than just looking. But you know, when I was in sales, in B2B, business to business, or corporate sales, whenever I came to one of my clients' offices, whenever I visited a client's office or place of work, I always looked around. I always paid attention to what's on the receptionist's desk, what's in the waiting area, how is the office decorated. Then, when I was walking into the offices, I would pay attention to see if I can see something specific. But more importantly, when I walked into my client's office where that person sat and worked, I paid attention to any pictures, any trophies, any prizes that might be on the person's desk or on the person's furniture. Quite often, that person might have a picture of his or her children, or a picture of that person golfing or fishing or playing a sport or being on vacation. And the simple task of noticing a picture and making a positive comment about it works wonders. It can create a topic of conversation, which is small talk, which is extremely important. And I'm just going to jump really quickly to Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. One of his principles is begin in a friendly way when you meet someone. And you know what? Small talk is absolutely beginning in a friendly way, especially if the small talk includes something that is important to the person that you will be meeting with. So when you walk in to a hiring manager's office, do the same thing that I did when I walked into a client's office. Pay attention. Now, do it discreetly. What I mean by that is don't walk into the office and appear that you're nosy, like you're snooping around and trying to find something. You have to do this discreetly by just looking around with your eyes casually and calmly. And then maybe mentioning something. Oh, that's an interesting picture of you on the beach. What country were you in? I really enjoy tropical beaches as well. And then that can help you begin in a friendly way before you actually sit down to the formal interview. Now, again, keep in mind, you have to think about your own culture. If small talk is not appropriate in your business culture, then of course that might need to be modified. So begin in a friendly way. And then the third thing, when we're going back to the three things that can help the other person like you, the third thing is we typically like people who appear to be working with us towards a common goal. Now, you might be thinking, how can I communicate that? Well, before you go to a job interview, before you start creating and writing your cover letter, make sure to carefully review the job advertisement and also do two things. Number one, the first thing is review the company website. Go directly to the updates or news section and see what's going on. Similarly, go to Google or Yahoo or whatever search engine you're using and type in the name of the company and see if they appear in any search results. If the company is big enough, you may want to take a look at their annual report. An annual report is always produced by a publicly traded company, typically a corporation. So companies like Facebook, like Microsoft, like Amazon, and many, many, many others that are publicly traded on the stock exchange, they will need to issue annual reports every year. These are fantastic documents to briefly review and see what projects the company has completed in the past, what new projects they are thinking of working towards, what projects have they failed at, and then you can see what experience, what skills you have that can perhaps help them in achieving their goals and their projects. Another great place to look is the company's mission and vision statements. Most companies have that in their About section on their websites. By the way, guys, if you have any comments or questions about what I'm talking about, please make sure to put them in the chat box. And also, if you're just joining us, say hi. I like to see that people are here and paying attention. So say hello. Hello to you. So just to summarize, how do we get people or how do we help people to like us? We need to do three things. We need to show them that we are similar to them, similar in our thinking, maybe similar in our speech patterns, or similar in terms of the goals that we want to achieve. The second thing is people appreciate compliments. Observe, pay attention to the person's office, pay attention to the person, do a little bit of research about the person's background or the company's background so that when you arrive at the interview, you can say something positive about that. And then the third thing, make sure that you research a little bit about what the company wants to achieve, common goals. People like other people who want to achieve similar goals. And if you don't want to go through all of that, just simply look in detail at the job advertisement. When you look at the job description, which describes what they want you to do if you get hired, well, these are excellent goals. These are excellent. It's an excellent starting point to see what direction they want you to go. So if you have any experience with that, even if it's in a different industry or maybe your class or something like that, make sure you comment. Make sure you align your goals, your achievements with their goals and their achievements. So now, moving on to Dale Carnegie. He, in his book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, he has many different tips of what you can do. And again, his book has received criticism that sometimes these things can be done in a non-genuine way. And what I mean by that is sometimes, when you walk into a store, the person working in the store, the customer service person, might give you what we often call a customer service smile, which is something like this. You can tell, you look at the eyes, it's not genuine. It's not real. I often use this with my students and I ask them the question, have you ever heard a person smile when they are talking on the phone? Can you hear a smile? The answer is yes. Our tone of voice changes when we are genuinely smiling and talking. So one way to begin in a friendly way is simply by feeling joy that you have the privilege, that you have the opportunity to be at that interview. So be happy that you're there. You know what? It does matter if you get the job or not. But I'm hoping that you don't just work towards having one job interview. Hopefully you keep trying, you keep working until you receive that contract where you sign it and you have a job. Just because you get a job offer in an interview doesn't mean you should sit down and relax. Keep going until you sign that contract, until the first day of your work. So, like I said, be genuinely happy that you were selected for an interview. That is an achievement, even if you don't get the job. Being called to an interview is a huge achievement. Be happy about that. It'll make you smile when you think that, there could be hundreds and hundreds of people sending a resume, but you were one of the few selected for an interview. That is absolutely a huge achievement. You should be proud of that. And if nothing else, it's an excellent opportunity to practice listening to and answering job interview questions. So again, when you walk in, to help the other person like you, to help you establish rapport, that important communication channel. When you walk in, smile. When you walk in, begin in a friendly and positive way. And the other tip that I would have for you is stay positive and never say anything negative about your previous company or your previous managers, even if you hated them. Because, if you start complaining about your previous manager, your interviewer or the hiring manager is going to think, aha, if that person is saying bad things about their previous manager, will they be talking bad things about us in perhaps their next interview, in their next job, whether that is 1 week from now or 5 years from now. It's about reputation, and you want to keep a positive reputation for yourself as well. So the tip here is always be positive. ABP. Oh, and the P also stands for professional. Always be professional. And by staying positive and avoiding negative talk, you are being professional. So, going back to Dale Carnegie, he says, smile, begin in a friendly way. And one thing that he says, it's so simple, but I always hear people saying that it's difficult for them. Remember the person's name. This might be easy if you are talking with just one person, but what if you're invited to a panel interview where you come and you are actually being interviewed by more than one person? Now, you're lucky if it's 2 or 3 because it's easier to remember their names. But I've had situations where I'm interviewed by 6 or 7 or 8 people. And in that case, what you might do is this. Bring your notebook. Always bring a notebook or notepad to every interview. With your notebook or notepad or piece of paper, say this. It's important for me to remember your names. Would I be able to ask you to introduce yourselves so that I can take a note, so that I can remember your names? That's one way, going back to Mr. Cialdini's principles, scarcity. By asking that questions to the panel, you're immediately differentiating yourself from other people being interviewed. Because I can guarantee you, you will be the only one or one of the very, very few people who asks this question. Another question that I recommend that is very related is when you're coming for your first interview, maybe you're just being interviewed by one person. Have your notebook or your paper, your notepad, and say this. It's very important for me to remember what we talk about in our interview. Would it be okay if I take notes as we have our conversation? The answer to that will always be yes. But the reason for asking that question, again, is to leverage the idea of scarcity. You're differentiating yourself from the other people being interviewed. Your interviewer will think, this person, that's the person. She's the person who asked permission to take notes. She pays attention to details. And that's always a skill that is in demand in any job. It doesn't matter what industry you're in. So the principle of scarcity, you can start and demonstrate it immediately at the beginning of your job interview. And, well, again, remembering the people's names, extremely important. I hear so frequently somebody say, I remember people's faces, but not names. We need to change that. Remember their face and their name. And one way to do that is to see if their name in any way could be connected with their face. So if you can remember their face, maybe it's the shape, or maybe a particular feature like the shape of their eyes, or the size of their nose, or their forehead, or their ears, or something like that. Is there any way you can take their name and connect it with their face? When you do that, psychologically, that's helping you to remember their name. So the sound of a person's name to them is one of the most pleasant things they can hear. That's what Dale Carnegie told us. The challenge sometimes is that person's name might be difficult for you to pronounce. So make sure to ask the person how to pronounce their name properly. And then I think this is one of the most important things that you can do. And again, Dale Carnegie suggests this, but so does Robert Cialdini. And that is talk in terms of the other person's interest. And in Mr. Cialdini's book, the equivalent to that is people like other people who work towards the same common goals. So when you are in an interview, when you're writing your cover letter, write and talk in terms of the other person's interest. Now, what does that mean? What is the other person's interest? It doesn't have to be just the other person's interest, but the company's interest. And that goes back to the company's goals, the company's mission statement, the company's vision statement, the company's values, what is important to them. And again, going back to the job advertisement, you will see what's important to the company, to the department, to the hiring manager. It's clearly, usually at least, spelled out in the job advertisement. They will tell you what they need. They will tell you what they want to accomplish through that job position. So again, when they ask you questions such as, why should we hire you? Or tell me about yourself, or tell me about your strengths, make sure that however you answer that question, you talk about and include information that is relevant and important to the hiring manager, to the department that is hiring, and to the company that is hiring. And once again, you can discover all of these things through the job advertisement by reviewing the company's website and seeing if you can find any news articles about them or any updates about them. Always focus your conversation to what is important to the company. And you don't have to do this right at the interview. You can actually plan this. So make sure when you're spending time preparing for the interview, you plan your answers based on what is important to the company, to the department, and to the hiring manager. So if they say that they require project management skills, think about how you use those skills. You don't have to be a project manager, but if you are organized, if you make to-do lists, if you prioritize your tasks, if you schedule things, all of those things are related to project management. So make sure you include those topics in your answers to questions such as tell me about yourself or why should we hire you compared to some other applicants. Another thing that Dale Carnegie said is dramatize your ideas. What does that mean, dramatize your ideas? It doesn't mean that you have to be an actor or performer. That's not what that means. It means that dry facts and numbers and logic is not enough to persuade someone. We must tell a story. That's what dramatize means. It means telling a story. So instead of saying, let's say you're a salesperson, instead of saying that you're good at solving customer problems and you reached your sales quota last year or last month. Those are dry facts. Those are statements. They're boring. They're not interesting. Now, of course, the hiring manager and the company, they want to hear that. That is exactly what they want. But just by saying that, you're not helping them remember it. Stories help us remember it. Because when you're telling a story, you're actually inviting the other person to participate in your story in their own mind. So the more details you include, the easier it will be for the other person to remember what you said. And remember, they're taking notes also. Just make sure that you have a goal in mind. Don't keep talking and talking and talking and talking and never reach a point. Because your interviewer will be thinking, what's your point? What are you actually trying to communicate? So one of the best ways to do that is to say something like this. Last year, I achieved my sales quota. That's your topic sentence. And then you can elaborate. Then you can provide more details by saying something like, it wasn't easy. I encountered a lot of challenges and a lot of difficult customers. For example, one of the challenges I encountered, or one of my difficult customers did this, and then tell a brief story about how you dealt with it. Your brief story is going to be like the foundation for the fact, for your topic sentence that you began your story with. Just make sure to keep it short. Keep it short, simple, and specific. That's what KISS, or the name of this channel, stands for. So always keep in mind, keep it short, simple, and specific by telling a short story. Your short stories should be no more than maybe 2 or 3 minutes long. And practice them at home. Take a few notes, plan your story, and then set your timer and tell your story, and then end your timer when you're finished. The more you do this, the more fluent you will become at answering these types of questions. Remember, more than one job interview question can be answered by one story. I've had several experiences where I would tell a brief story, of course, lead with a topic sentence, and then my interviewer or the hiring manager would say, "Oh, you've actually answered the next 2 questions that I wanted to ask you." So by telling a brief story, you can actually help to expedite the interview, or you can actually help the interviewer interview you. Believe me, they're going to appreciate that, and they're going to note that. So by doing all of these things, you're persuading, you're encouraging, you're inviting the hiring manager, the interviewer, to get on the same page as you. And that is rapport. So let's summarize this lesson. Let's summarize this class. The 3 principles of influence from Robert Cialdini that we discussed include scarcity of your skills, or the combination of your skills, authority and credibility that you can begin building by using your LinkedIn profile or by collecting reference and recommendation letters. And the 3rd principle out of 6 that we discussed is liking. And of course, people like people who are similar to them, who give them compliments, and who work together to achieve similar goals. So that is from Robert Cialdini's book. From Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, we learned that by smiling and beginning in a positive way, we immediately create a positive environment. And everybody likes that. Nobody likes negativity. We also learned from Dale Carnegie's book that remembering the person's name is extremely important. And when can you practice that? When you're leaving the interview, at the end of your interview, thank the person for spending time with you and use their name. So if their name is John, you would say, "John, thank you so much for taking the time to interview me and to have a conversation with me. I enjoyed the experience, and I enjoyed talking with you and learning from you as well. I hope I will hear from you soon." And then after that, follow up with a thank you email, again, using the person's name. So it's also useful to ask for the person's business card if he or she didn't give it to you. This way you have their contact information as well. And then some other points from How to Win Friends and Influence People. Probably one of the most important ones is talk in terms of the other person's department's or company's interests, and dramatize the idea. What I mean by that, again, is start with a topic sentence and then fill it in by providing a very short story. So to summarize, I hope this conversation was useful for you. As you noticed, this is not the typical KISS or keep it short, simple, and specific video, because I see that we are going on to 44 minutes. The key here was not to keep it short, but to keep it specific and to keep it simple so that we can understand it. So I hope to be doing these types of live classes in the future again. This is the very first one, so it's the first experience for me to have this live chat, but I'm hoping that you can join me in the future, and of course I will provide a video or a message to let you know when the next live chat will be scheduled for. So I hope that you will comment on this video. If you're watching it on a replay, again, I invite your comments, I invite your questions. I do my best to respond to every comment and question, and it's the same for live chat. If you do decide to participate, I will address every comment and do my best to answer every question for you as well. So, if you did join me in the live chat, I thank you and I hope to see you again.